All right, we're back. We're going to be looking at chapter 19 this week. Chapter 19 starts with Napoleon, which we kind of talked about last week. Really, Napoleon gives rise to Romanticism, which is where I want to get to. But first, let's talk about Napoleon and his rise to power as he starts winning these victories. However, he reaches into the Ottoman Empire, which ultimately will be his downfall. But Napoleon provides stability to all of France, which then gives some stability to the rest of the world, because as he's conquering other countries, he's able to secure stability for those countries, if that makes sense. Napoleon, because he is securing stability, people then have a little bit of time to reflect. And you even have poor people who now can own land and have land, who are trying to find ways that they can connect with their surroundings. And so we get the rise of Romanticism. This is a theme that you should probably take special attention to as you read through this chapter. Romanticism seems to lead to a couple of different places. First, Romanticism lends itself to individuality, and the idea of individuality in Romanticism is that you're happy in nature, you're happy with oneself. It's surreal or unreal. It can be imaginative. A lot of the literature that we get out of the Romantic period is very image-based and unreal, fanciful. These are some of the words that you'll see in this chapter. And I think that that's interesting to note, is that it seems like people, in my mind, as a social historian, see that people are trying to leave their reality and their surroundings and get into something that might be more in their mind, make them feel better about what's going on. I think that this makes a lot of sense, especially coming out of the French Revolution. The other one that I want you to take note is the idea of nationalism. Now, there is this turning point, and obviously I have maybe some hero worship with Jean-Jacques Rousseau, but Rousseau's idea, although he comes out of the Enlightenment, is really that we should allow people to be who they are, and they should be good people, and they should value being good for the society. He believes that what we should have are children who are learning in their own sphere, okay? When that happens, you have a certain group of people who are going to become similar or like out of their similar experiences. This lends itself to nationalism. But not only that, you have the Romantic period, which is really putting emphasis on cultural experiences, and that different cultures bring different pieces to their culture. And so this is an interesting idea that I think that you should take note of, is that the rise of nationalism, we've talked about it, especially those students who are 101 with me, that the rise of nationalism, we've seen it continue to grow. And here we're seeing it again as you get German artists who are writing or painting about Germany, French artists who are writing or painting, making sculptures about France. Okay, we're not getting, although it's mythical at some points, it definitely is supposed to denote some sort of nationalism. And the Romantic period really lends itself to that, because people are thinking that they can feel happier in their own culture. Now, I think that one of the things that we need to understand, especially when we're talking about Rousseau, or you'll read about Immanuel Kant, is that I don't think that they necessarily thought that it would lead to nationalism like we see it today, but rather that you should have pride in where you're from and where you're at, and that in having that pride, you would find some way to affect change, that you would make it better, and that's really the reason that you would try to be that person or to work on the society. Okay, so if that's the way, if you're reading this chapter this week, I hope that you find that the Romantic period brings about a couple of different things or themes that you can write about in your weekly discussions or your assignments this week. But I also hope that as you work through some of these themes, you can see the connection to today. Now, as I'm reading along with you, one of the connections that I made, my 101 class, those students from 101 will know that I just moved here from Portland, Oregon, And I look at the Romantic period, Romanticism, and the idea and rise of nationalism to the hipster movement that we saw in Portland. Now, I don't think that it's far fetched. I do think that with Rousseau saying that our kids should be out learning with it, experiencing different things, that seems like free range parenting to me. And what I saw in Portland, this idea of nationalism and loving where you're from, I'd never seen stickers from a place like I did in Oregon. And then as I moved back to Idaho, all of a sudden Idaho has Idaho stickers, and everybody's happy with where they're from and the things that that you had. I think that we haven't seen that sort of nationalism before. And I think that that's interesting. And I think that you should find these connections where you can make it important to your life. And you can tie some of the things that you see today to these historical periods. And the Romantic period is one of those. We get a lot of great art, a lot of great literature out of the Romantic period. But I definitely think, and I think that you'll see this as well, that it comes from that stability that Napoleon provided. It also comes from the French Revolution, and for years having war being raged across your country. I think that when you get on the other side, you're just looking to have some peace. And that's what you find in the Romantic period. Read this week. Let's discuss it on our chat board, or if it's a writing assignment this week, be sure that you write and use some of these themes as we talk about, or as that you read about. I hope you have a good week. Happy reading.